So hello everyone, we are going to play another game on chess.com on a Chessup2 board, and we are still continuing doing the doing like a little battle between two systems on each side, either Sicilian Khan or Philidor. We are getting another black pieces, but the game was aborted, so we are going to see if we can find a new game. So as white we are trying to play Philidor or as white we are going to try and play Botvinnik system, or we are going to play the e4 system with Vienna. So far both games are 1-all. We had much more comfortable and winning position with the with the Botvinnik system. But with the Vienna system, we achieved a really quick victory, because there I know exactly how the pieces should be set up, so it was quite simple. Here black might try and push d5 pretty early, so it might not pan out as a typical Botvinnik system, but we will see if he allows us to play bishop g2 first. And it seems like we will be allowed to go into this system. So now I believe we are set up for some sort of Botvinnik system where the knight will go to e2. We just need to decide whether we want to really play e4 or not, or whether we want to play it slow and play e3. And as black didn't yet decide what to do in the center, I don't want to commit to the e4 square yet, but it's playable, it's totally doable. And just for the sake of comparing really the two openings, where in Vienna when you play e4, there is this one less move that you have done, that the pawn on c4 isn't there. So we might as well want to do the e4 move, but I'll be honest, these days I want to test more the e3 move and see what our opponent does first before we take any action in the center of the board. So we're still going to play the e3 move first. There is actually one good question to what I just see on the board. What to do if black plays knight to e5? But I believe when I look at it now, I would prefer to play first the move d3 to protect the c4 pawn, other than play something like move b3, because that would open this e2 square. And if the possibility also is to play maybe queen to e2 and then push the knight away with the d4 move. That's a second option of how to play. So what I want to do with the move e3, instead of playing the typical Botvinnik system with e4, d3 and so on, I want to keep the position as flexible as possible, and then decide later on in the game what I would like to do with the position itself. So basically the whole system is built on protecting and controlling lots of the dark squares. So black is playing knight to b4, which is kind of pushing our hand really in the direction of deciding to strike in the center, in the sense that we are not really striking anything, but more sort of expanding, as the knight to b4 would like to jump on d3 really badly. So I believe it's now the time to take more space in the center. The knight will be easily kicked with the move like a3. So this is basically a waste of tempi for black, and might give us some useful move playing a3 in the future. These bishops usually are more valuable than the rooks in the corner. I had a very interesting discussions at my time when we were streaming on the on Twitch back in the day. Well, let's not pretend it was a pretty amateurish stream to begin with, but we definitely had our share of fun at the time. So Black would love to have time to play bishop f5, so they can then attack knight c2. And I normally may have what I could have done normally is to push the knight first and not allowing the bishop f5. However, the situation is such that I want to restrict that bishop as much as possible. In this case, normally I don't like to allow bishop g4 in the Vienna system, but here I don't mind if we get that bishop for our knight on e2, so that's why I'm not going to waste the tempi by playing h3. I will allow the bishop f5, and then I'm going to hit the bishop with the pawn move onto e4, and then I'm almost as well thinking to then like further expand, but I will play this move first and we will make a decision afterwards. Because also after bishop f5 there's some tactics with me taking on b7, but I need to decide first. So we will go with the idea that we had the very first time, because bishop b7, knight c2 doesn't seem to work well, and as I said, this bishop is more valuable than the rook in the corner. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply attack the bishop here. We are protecting twice on e4, so that's why I didn't have to worry about bishop f5. Bishop f5, looking from here looks more like a waste of tempi. But maybe I could have played h3, because now the bishop g4 might want to trade itself for our beautifully looking knight. We might have some really good tactical options with a move like e5 and then taking on b7. But we will see what's going to happen next. So bishop retreats to d7, which is something that we would normally want, which is fine. And it actually gives us the chance to push the knight with the pawn e5 move. It's kind of very stormy, I like it. But right now it doesn't seem to work, because if we push e5 takes, knight g4, then Black will be able to recapture in most cases, and our position, while still undeveloped, would be a little bit difficult, and it's not worth it just to take the pawn on b7. We much rather, I would like to do something against this knight. I'm quite happy that the knight is there the way it is. And I'll be honest, we have missed something really interesting, because when he played bishop f5, that's where we could have taken the advantage of this knight and play queen a4 check. This is what I totally missed. The knight would have to retreat, and then we trap the knight with d5. So that's a big miss. We had already a winning position. But it's something that I need to keep looking forward to, because just now for some reason I totally forgot about that check when the d6 was played. It's what happens when sometimes we are talking too much during the game. Maybe I can somehow ask that bishop to go away again. Lure him out just so we can trap the knight. But instead of, you know, playing for tricks, let's just castle. I cannot believe how many mistakes do I do each game. It clearly shows that I'm out of practice. So we want to avoid any jumps of knight to g4 in the near future, and we want to develop our bishop onto e3. So that's the reason why we are going to play h3 first. Nice slow move. If rook e8 is played, black maybe wants to play e5. But right now, this move allows us to trap the knight on e5 itself. Because if we push the e5 pawn, the knight suddenly finds itself without squares apart from this one, and the g4 is going to win the knight. So now the only question is it worth it? And what would she say? I think she would say that it's totally worth it to win the knight for 3 pawns. Is it 2 pawns? 2 pawns. 2 pawns for a knight. The position will be like a little bit too chaotic, and not sure this is what we want to achieve. So however, I mean, what could be worse or better than winning the free piece on h5? We're going for it. So rook e8 is a move that you need to be very careful when you are in a constricted, tight space, because this is something that can very simply happen to you, that the knight suddenly finds itself without the squares where I can still push the e5. So that's why it's good to try and resolve the center with some c5 or e5 push to see what I want to do with my pieces before you commit to anything else. I assume we will soon be trading some of the pieces. White might be forced eventually to trade for the bishop. So again, this system, the Botvinnik system, like the way I played it, yes, I could have won already the knight that jumps to b4. This is one of the things, if you don't have any concrete plan of why the knight should jump forward, you should not simply just do that. I know that black was trying to connect with the c2, but completely left this knight unprotected, and we could have simply win it just with a simple check. So if you can avoid that kind of mistake, play maybe bishop f5 first and then see if you can play knight b4. So black did not find the correct move at all. They chose knight g5, and this is pretty simple position for us to handle. I think from there on, we're obviously taking the free knight. I wonder if black will take on e5 first, which I think is closer to correct move than any other move that he's got available at the moment. Bishop g4 is a fine move as well. However, it will just lead to simplification, and my question is if I shall keep the f4 pawn, the e5 pawn protected. I feel like I really should have, but the position is a little bit messy right now. The knight might want to be jumping onto d3. And as the knight itself is a bit annoying, I would like to sort out this position of that knight first, before I decide what to do with the e5 pawn. I can quite possibly play pawn to f3 to also see what the bishop is going to do. But then the bishop probably can jump onto f5, and that's where it would be pretty annoying. Bishop c3 could come as well as a really nasty move. So this position is not so simple to. It's not so simple to uncork. So I believe we will start with a simple developing move, just so we have more freedom with our a-rook if the queen trade comes, which I expect to happen. And I would rather if black trades than if I trade. Obviously, if I play bishop f4, it will be difficult to hold the pawn on e5, but we are extra pawn up, so the pawn on e5 we can give. One of the advice would be, trade pieces, give some advantage back, but make sure that your position is like rock solid. That always helps with realizing your advantage. Okay, knight jumps here, which is a fair move. And what I really want to do here is to see where is the knight gonna go, and I might be able to trap that knight. So if the knight wants to capture here, that's absolutely fine with us. So the question is, shall I capture first on b7, or shall I go after this knight itself? I feel that to go after the knight is the better proposition, because if the knight captures here, it will get trapped, and yeah, we are big on traps. Because if it takes here and I play queen to b3, this is what lots of inexperienced players don't understand, that if you go like this, you might really end up in a trap situation. So when I play queen b3, you can see that the knight doesn't have many squares, it can only return back to d3. And then I'll just underpin it with my rook. I will use this rook because after rook d1, black has still option to counter-attack my queen. When I capture there, he captures here, I capture there, I still will be able to recapture the knight. So this is the reason why I went bishop e4, just to see if he's going to fall for this little trap. And now we are pinning the queen to the knight, and now also the bishop doesn't have a time to help the knight. What black can do, and it might potentially work, is to play bishop e2, knight e2, knight c5, but the problem is we are taking the queen, so he needs to take our queen also. So there isn't much black can do. There's one thing he can do basically that looks good, and that's to take on f4. If we take the queen, he can take here with the check. We take back. He takes the rook, so that way he would get the most material. So I think knight takes f4 is the best trying to get like one piece. We take the queen, then he gets second piece. We take one piece back, and he also will be able to recapture with the rook, and so that would be rook and bishop for the queen. So I think that would be his best try. However, he's not going to do that. So now we should be clearly winning, as we are winning another piece here. So we already up, let's calculate it in a moment. I'll count it, to be honest. So we give a check, black has to take, we take back, and now we can count the damage. So we have 2 extra knights. We have 2 extra knights for 2 pawns. So I believe I once managed to save a game where I had sacrificed 2 knights versus 3 pawns. I'm talking about over the board chess, the serious stuff you may call it. And I was able to win with 2 knights down after sacrificing a queen, having a windmill. But this is not something that happens every day, and this position is very, very safe for us. So we have no concern about winning here. So first we will push the bishop away. The bishop can attack from here, but it doesn't matter because all we want is just to untangle these knights so we can use them in our attack. Also, if the bishop lands here, then we can trap it with the g4 in the future. Bishop c8 is a sad move to make. We take in the only open file. If move like h6 with the order to play g5 and try to win this pawn, we can play always g4 and have this escape for the bishop. So there's like, practically speaking, there isn't much that white can do, black can do at this point, not to be losing. And to be honest, I don't even recall how all these problems started. Oh yes, we have trapped the knight here. We could have also won the knight here on b4. So there was many ways to win. So as I said, we will play g4. So when we pushed, we can drop the bishop down, so we still protect our pawn. Then maybe we can also start our own pawn pushes forward. So whereas the bishop is always better closer to the center, so we have like bishop f2 if we want it or need it. Black is trying to open the position, but at this stage it's unlikely to help them because, as we say, the ship has already sailed. So I know we are running low on time again, but yeah, this position, I just want to finish it as cleanly as possible. And I believe one of those moves will be to capture simply. If bishop f6 doesn't matter, if e takes f6 doesn't matter. So now black has some space for his rook. We play bishop c7. The idea is to trade the rooks. Also with the ef6 now basically black has locked his own bishop in, so we might exploit it with putting our pieces on f5. Okay, so black is defiant and oh yes, but this is again, you know, the rook stopped protecting the south bishop that went on to c8, so we are going to pick another material. And yeah, so the games with Botvinnik system, we faced no trouble at all so far. So even though the scores is now going to be 2-1 for Botvinnik system, and we have still one game left to play for Vienna system, I believe that the Botvinnik was rock solid so far and has a slight edge, even if the scores will be even if we manage to win the game with Vienna. So the idea is to play at least 10 games to see, how the openings fare. Okay, so fair enough. Black is at least trying to develop their rook into the game. There is, however, not so many squares they can go to, and after we make them move the rook, we will offer the trade of the rooks too. So I think the sensible square was to play rook d3, but we are controlling that square, so there's nowhere that rook can attack. I actually quite like the players that resign their games early rather than trying to play against 3 pieces. Even if you see that I'm a slower player, there's absolutely nothing to play for here. This type of position just does not require you to make any moves. It's just over. I mean, Black can play rook to e3, but after king f2, there will again be no more squares left for black rook. So the rook has to go to 8 rank, which means I can win the rook then. So we attack in the rook. Now with only a few seconds left on the clock, you can still win this game pretty easily, I would say. And this is why it's so important and so worth it to spend more time in the opening to do all the right moves, because then once you pass that phase and your opponent didn't spend so much time or didn't do the correct moves, then once you reach that winning position, you only you can live from the increment and convert your position. Although that being said, I had some games you've seen me making like a really big blunders in a time pressure, so but it was probably still in a more complicated positions that require some more technique. But that being said, there's no excuse for those blunders apart from losing concentration, having to make a quick move. Also, as the Chessup goes, I have to make move for both sides, so it's oftentimes happens that I make those mistakes. Okay, so far with the 3 games played, 2-1 for Botvinnik system, but I believe I enjoy quite the Vienna system more, but the Botvinnik system I'm quite impressed so far how it's performing. Anyway guys, I will see you later on. I will be posting hopefully 1 video a day, but that's yet to be seen. I'm working on getting more videos out there. You guys take care, and thank you for watching.